Awesome. We are live. Hey guys, this is Brendan Borman back for an exciting 270 stream. I am here with Daniel Smith. Almost called you Daniel Warren. That would have been awkward.
That would have been a retake.
Yeah. So now this video is something I've been looking forward to for a while. It is basically a Republican strategy video. So whether you are brand new to the game and debating on things like how to pick a character or just basic strategy talk, or if you're someone who's been playing for a very long time, you're just wanting to take the next step on how to be a better 270 player, hopefully over the next few minutes we will be able to talk about kind of our mindset when we're playing 270 and help you get better at the game. So definitely want to say thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll turn it over to Daniel. Thank you so much for hopping on with me.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Brendan. I've been looking forward to this all week. Once you asked me about it, I was thrilled that you would choose me to talk about the Republican strategy and my mindset and how I think about the game, and just really looking forward to it and seeing what the loungers have to say and their thoughts, because I mean we kind of learn from each other. We gather information from each other, and that's what the lounge is sharing information and learning to be a better player and building a good community. So thanks for having us. Thanks for putting this on for us.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll have to be honest, my first call, George Fry, he didn't answer. No.
He was definitely who I thought you should have had for Republican strategy. So I guess I'll be number 2 on this.
No, you were actually number 1. I'm saving George for a future video.
Yeah.
And the kind of cool thing about the concept of, getting inside people's heads, I mean, everyone plays this game for a different reason. Everyone has their own strategies and like their own tendencies. And I know that while people do enjoy watching me play my videos on the YouTube channel and on the live stream in the lounge, like it's good to see and hear different people's perspectives. So
right.
Definitely glad you could go join us. I know that we are both ranked inside the top 50, and you just recently won your 1,000th game, so congratulations.
Right. Thank you.
But I was going to ask, when did you start playing 270?
I can't put an exact number on it. It's got to be at least a year, probably more. Time kind of blurs together, especially now that we're in 2020 and it feels like everything's upside down. But I would say I've been playing at least a year, probably 2. But I started before the lounge. Actually, the way I started was there was a game back before the 2012 election, and it was similar to 270, but it was more of a you're on the path to being the president, and you've got to go give speeches and raise money at campaigns. So it was similar. I played it for a while and lost it, and then I was thinking 2015 coming up, the elections coming up and everything. I want to find a fun strategy game to play, that has politics involved. So I start searching, and in the Apple search, 270 pops up. So I read about it, download it, start playing it, have no idea what I'm doing on this game. At first I picked Ted Cruz because I was a Cruz guy. So I'm using free candidate Ted Cruz on it and start playing. Of course, I'm in the Republican mindset, so I'm playing. I got to take the old South. I got to grab Texas, Oklahoma, all the Republican states. As time progressed and I learned more and more, hey, I can go out in California if I want. I can go grab Illinois if I want. So that was some of the learning process. Of course, I didn't have the lounge to help there, but as I began to play more and more, I realized, hey, I can take New York if I want to. I can take Hawaii. So yeah, that was one of the first stages of learning. Many more stages and I'm still learning. I mean, that's the cool thing with 270 is you can play for years and years and still learn something and learn from other players. So
absolutely,
yeah, that's kind of how I started.
And as the game and as people get better and there's different metas and it just is a constant mind game. And I know when I was first playing, like you were saying, I didn't even know how a ballot was triggered. So I was like, please no ballot, please no ballot.
Right.
And I'm like, looking back, and who knows like how many games it took to really click. I actually started about 4 years ago, so I've been playing a while. I did take quite a bit of time off. I got frustrated with like lagginess and glitches and stuff, and
Right.
came back, and really once the community tournaments took off, like that's when I really have jumped in. So I gotta ask you, who is your favorite Republican candidate? I know you start off with Ted Cruz. Do you have like a go-to?
Well, I would say my go-to is Trump 2020. There for a while, I was using Abe Lincoln. I got Lincoln. I don't have a subscription. I did get the free subscription for the rating that 270 offered. So, and I've been experimenting with different candidates. But, I got the three candidates. I chose Trump 2020, Abe Lincoln, and Ben Carson when they had the three candidate giveaway for doing the original review. So I picked those guys up, and I picked Lincoln up and Ben Carson up because of their strong African-American bonus. When you use a Republican, you don't have that bonus typically. So it was good to have those guys because I'm already used to going the old South, swing states, that sort of thing. So having a candidate with a strong African-American bonus seemed to help. So I used Lincoln for a good while. With that strong African-American bonus. But I realized that if someone is playing you, especially a talented player, if they play you, they take away the African-American bonus, then what is Lincoln? Without that African bonus, he's just another, couple of, I think it's 25% manufacturing, and that's really it. So,
And a penalty in high tech, and a penalty, in some of these other, like he plays like a Democrat, but
exactly.
Fallout plan is no bueno. So I will say, and I've given you kudos before, you are, in my opinion, one of the best Lincoln players out there. It takes, and when you're playing against a top-level player, you have to be able to pivot and also give yourselves options. One of the big tournaments that's in the lounge, the World Cup, that was hosted, we actually were in a grouping together, and I didn't really realize that it was by electors, and like he kicked my butt, like turn 7, I forfeited.
Right.
And I ended up beating Lierte and somebody else. I still didn't even make it just because I was so far behind. So remember to read the rules and like before you forfeit.
Exactly. Right.
But no. So you mentioned Carson. I love Ben Carson. You mentioned Abe Lincoln. And you mentioned Trump 2020. So those are some of your favorite ones. Do you look at like if you're in a community tournament or if you're doing a tournament now that 270 is hosting? Do you just go off of like? Some people play the game to change it up. They don't want to do the same strategy every time. Is it help to know like who you're going up against opponent wise? Does that dictate who your candidate selection is?
I think so. I like to, especially now with the new subscription that I've got. I've experimented with other players, but if I had a go-to candidate, if I'm in a big match with you or Jason or George or any big name in the lounge, I'm going for Trump 2020 because he's so versatile. There's just very few penalties that he has that is a negative. He does have the low African American bonus, but I mean it's 20%. So 80,000 for me is better than 150,000 for an Obama. So that's how I look at it. Especially when I'm playing someone with that, I would like to have that 80,000 versus their 150. But yeah, Trump 2020, he's got so many positives in all the right places, should I say. My strategy, is swing states. For people that have played me a lot, they know that I'm going for swing states. I've actually started using the swing states and the hangman strategy, as the lounge calls it, where you pick up swing states via, I believe it's Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and then you got the swing states there. And then once you get those, you can grab, Illinois and Michigan, or Illinois and Indiana and Kentucky, whatever combo you choose, and then you'll have manufacturing. So Trump's got a huge manufacturing bonus. He's got a huge swing state bonus. So been experimenting with that a little bit, but, swing states is definitely where I'm coming out of the gate at. If I'm playing with Trump 2020 or really anybody, I try to go for the swing states.
And swing states, as a Republican, like there are a few candidates who have a swing state positive bonus. Like you think of John McCain, who's a free candidate, and like that's one of the very popular like new player like John McCain, swing states, like, and
Right.
then you get the people who don't get swing states after turn 4 and you take it and they quit. And like,
Right.
we've all been there, you know, you learn. And like, it took me a while to learn the forfeit rule. But you mentioned the hangman strategy. So just to touch on that a little bit, I know when I was first playing, like, it's so easy to gravitate toward the 4 big states. So obviously,
Right.
you've got Florida and you got Texas, and those are more Republican states. And then you've got California and you've got New York. And those are more Democratic states. But in any match, you know, you can have, you know, different combinations of those states. They're just so expensive. But manufacturing, that is a Republican stronghold bonus. I mean, of course, you know, there are Democrats who can go that way or have it. But when I first started playing, you know, I would prioritize Texas, Texas, Texas. I got to get Texas. It just takes so long, though. But everyone knows that if you, or, you know, maybe not everyone, but it's pretty standard for people to know, like, if I have Texas in 2 other manufacturing states that are not Indiana, and if you have Indiana and Kentucky, you need Wisconsin. But with any of the other 2 states, that's going to give them the manufacturing bonus. You just mentioned the hangman strategy. What are the pros and cons in your opinions, in your opinion, of hangman? And when it doesn't work, what's your kind of pivot point, or what do you do with
Right.
that?
So before I decide to use a hangman strategy, it's really depending on who I'm playing. If I'm playing a veteran, I'm not going because I'm not comfortable with that strategy. If I'm in the lobby, just a random match, and you know somebody shows up that I've never seen, I take the first couple of rounds to see where they're going. Whether they go into national groups first, a lot of the lobby people will go into national groups first, so that gives me an idea that they're going to be there at least 1 or 2 turns collecting that. So that gives me time to go ahead and start setting up my initial, which is usually, you know, 1 pip into Florida, 1 pip into the swing states, and then I'll, you know, by turn 3 you can have swing states if you're in the right states. But the hangman strategy, if I've got Trump, I've worked with him. Actually, I started using it the most when I was playing with Elon Musk. He's got a huge high-tech bonus, 40%. If you're going after high-tech, my favorite combo for high-tech is Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and California. So if I start there in Pennsylvania, you know, you can start building on the hangman strategy, picking up manufacturing, swing states, and then as long as your competitor hasn't moved into California, hop out there. So you've got 3 big bonuses. Those are all positives for Elon Musk with a high-tech swing state manufacturing. So that's where I actually started working with the hangman strategy. Now I've been, you know, implementing it in my Republican game. Works good with Trump because Trump has a high-tech bonus. He has a swing state bonus. He's got the manufacturing bonus. So helps that a lot. If you can use it, you know, a lot of the times the opponent that you're playing will foil that plan and you have to switch out and go elsewhere. But it's something good to start out and at least have some pips into those states in case you want to build on it later.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great foundation, and it gives you the opportunity to pivot. You know, it doesn't matter. Like you were referencing swing states. Swing states, you know, it's one of those bonuses like town and gown that are great, like a core, because you can get those in 3 turns. But
Right.
you know, if you get it in 4 turns or 5 turns, you know, in some matches that's okay, as long as you're, you know, you're expanding, you're kind of blocking your opponents. I mean, most of my games, I'm not trying to play too much defense. I'm trying to kind of expand, and I've actually been tracking all of my matches. I'm a nerd on Excel since February. Fun fact, I've played 408 coded games that don't even count toward my record. But I've been tracking, and my average turn is my average number of turns per match is 14.3. So that kind of gives you like an idea. You know, some games, like I just played an RHL match with Daniel Warren last night. He was the Kellyanne Conway, and he got big conservative in 2 turns. Had $75,000 cash advantage every turn, and he delayed me from getting my first bonus until turn 7.
Wow.
I mean, I was up a creek, and somehow I was able to, flip the tide. And it came down to the ballot, and it unfortunately went my way by 3. But, that just goes to show he was in a great situation, even though he didn't actually get a bonus himself until I think turn 8 or 9. Just the fact that he had that big of a cash advantage where you can use the other way. And that goes to show you, you were referencing national groups. Republicans, they have the big conservative, they have the gun lobby, and they have the evangelical. But that is something that newer players go for, and they don't really realize it's an investment. It takes a long time to pay off. And we'll talk about like multiplayer games a little bit, but 1v1, is there a candidate or a specific time where you might think about national groups, or are you just avoiding it altogether?
Well, I would say 90% of the time I don't touch national groups 1v1, and that's my bread and butter is 1-on-1. I play multiplayer matches enough to remind myself why I don't like playing multiplayer matches. But for me, and this is something I think to go to the next step and being even, to get on the top tier with the, I feel the Javier, the Jason, the George, those guys, is I've got to learn that it's okay to play from behind, because in my mindset, when I'm playing, I always want to be in control. And if you're playing top tier guys, you're going to have to, I've got to learn, I've got to get out of the mindset of always being ahead. But if you go for national groups, I personally believe you're putting yourself behind, up front. Now, it will pay off turn 12, 13, 14. The longer the match goes, the more that pays off. But for me, I like to be, in control of the match, or feel like I have, what I do is what dictates how the match goes.
Yeah, kind of control like what bonuses are going to be the priority for you. And I do know that I agree. Like, I like to have control also. That just comes with my personality. But it's also like knowing when to defend and when not to defend. It's not really an art. It's not really a science. There's a little bit of math to it. Like what can take away a bonus for me. But that's one way where you can be in control, but not necessarily have the cash advantage if you low spend. But if you're facing another top tier player and they don't overspend and they just progress, if you don't have Texas and they're in Texas and they pivot to California before you do, all of a sudden the game is a completely different game. So I know exactly what you're talking about for sure. You mentioned your bread and butter. I just wanted to ask you, I know you said swing. How do you feel, and you mentioned Old South, you mentioned manufacturing, with swing states specifically, because this is a conversation I've had with a lot of top players. I am someone, I hate Florida. Like, it's a love-hate relationship, because a lot of the games that I win, I have Florida. You can win without Florida, but it feels so scary to have to overspend and defend in Florida.
Yeah.
When you are getting swing states, do you always, or not, I would say always, but do you, the majority of the time, prioritizing getting Florida just to have that advantage in the swing states, or would you rather, kind of let your opponent dictate that?
Well, that's a good question. That's something that I'm growing in. I would say for, most of the time I would feel that Florida, like Florida is one of those states where you feel like you have to have it to win. And if an opponent pressures you in Florida, you overspend defending. I've been trying to wean myself off of Florida over the last couple of weeks. And that's why I started using the hangman strategy and getting confident playing a game where I don't have Florida or I don't need Florida. And it's hard to do because Florida it's a very important state. It's relatively cheap, compared to the other big states, Texas, California. But yeah, I want to wean myself off of having to rely so heavily on Florida. But a lot, depends on who you're playing. If you're playing a Democrat with a strong African-American bonus, you want to hold on to Florida because it's got such an important African-American presence. So if I'm playing an Obama or Stacey Abrams or anybody, Abe Lincoln with those high vote or bonuses, I'm going to try to defend it a little more because I don't want them to grab their big bonus with it. But yeah, I agree. Florida is a huge state, and it's always better when you're the one that has Florida on lock.
For sure. And this was not on the script, so this is just kind of a follow-up question. But And it might be because the game has updated and you no longer have to like pip in and then like fake a move and take it
Right.
away zero spin. But what are your thoughts? Two-part question. What are your thoughts on zero spending on turn number 1 to kind of get an idea? And is that something that you incorporate? And then B, how do you feel about clashes? Some people try to avoid early clashes. Some people like try their best to clash to they just like to be like conflict. They feel like that they can outmaneuver people.
Right.
So number 1, zero spinning. Number 2, clashes.
Okay, yeah, zero spinning. I do not zero spin. I do low spin on that first turn because you're given 250,000 to start the game. As a rookie player, I would spend the 250,000 every turn, and I think that's a growing process for many players is when you learn that you don't have to spend all of that money. So I'll usually put a pip into a swing state, and if we're talking Trump 2020, it's going to be a swing state such as North Carolina or Pennsylvania or Ohio or Wisconsin, one of those that I could swing to Old South or swing to manufacturing, pivot off of that. If I'm playing with a Democratic candidate, which I have been playing with them a little bit, I'll put maybe a pip into Arizona or Iowa or one of those that could pip me or that could swing me into the town and gown bonus or that sort of thing. But yeah, I low spend, but I don't no spend.
They call that the Dave Ramsey plan.
I don't have the Dave Ramsey plan on this one. I'm going to at least put a little bit of money out there. For players that do it against me, I'm okay with it if they do. And a lot of the newer players in the lobby I found have the zero spend. They've started doing that, but it doesn't bother me unless they start pipping into the states and kind of state chasing.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes kind of an issue. But yeah, as long as they're saving that money up, then I think the biggest thing to watch for then is them to do the double tap into California and Texas, which is a good strategy if you're a newer player. But if you spread your money too thin, it takes very little time for someone like me, you, or a veteran player to save up money and take one of them from you. So,
or just have every other bonus. And like, I love when someone goes California and Texas. I love it when you get Latino. Like you have every other Latino state.
Right.
I mean, it's something that you just have. You have all the major bonuses, and it does take some practice for newer players to realize like there is a strategy beyond Texas and California.
Right.
And you're right. And not only like just low spending to give yourself options, but also like, you may not be going for a risky steal in Florida, but, having the cash to where you can forces you to overspend. And, as a newer player, that's something that people, can hopefully take away from. And I know like, that wasn't something I came up with on my own. I'm not that smart. People did that to me over and over again. And I was a defensive dentist, and I just kept woo.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone is, because I think that's the human, mindset for most people is you're not going to take that away from me, So yeah, that's what I'll do. If back to I think your other question, if a player clashes with me. That's why I got off of going into Florida first round, because that's a popular state for some players, and a lot of players do want to go after swing states and get those early, because probably most of the candidates have, at least if they don't have a bonus, they have no penalty, so they're at least getting that 100,000. But if I clash in Florida, I'll go ahead and throw another pip into, the other swing states, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, and that's it. And that'll, you're still left with a good amount of money. And then I'll kind of let the players see what they're going to do. If they continue to block Florida, which is what most new players do, they just keep going up in Florida. And while they're doing that, I'm just going to grab swing state another way, save that swing state money, take Florida late in the game, or some method.
Yeah, and one thing that took me a little while, I will say, I think I was ahead of the curve. At least I want to think I am on as far as the clashing goes. In the beginning, like if you clash in Florida, like there's no harm, no foul. Like if you just spend like, 200,000 both players in Florida, you go back to where you started. So
Right.
you get that money back. And like you keep referencing Obama, and that's great because like Obama is one of the most overpowered or strong candidates in the game.
Right.
And as a Republican candidate going up against an Obama, the Old South is a perfect way to combat his African American bonus. However, I will the majority of the time go one pip into New York on turn number one. And sometimes, like, Obama will not go to New York, but oftentimes he does, and you clash. And, you're referencing newer players going up in Florida after they clash. Obama almost always spends $300,000 in New York on turn number two. Well, the good thing about clashing on turn number one in New York is that now the rest of the game you have access to pressure New York if you low spin. And you don't have to waste cash later on. Right. Number two, if you spend exactly $150,000 in cash in New York on turn number one, all the rest of your money rolls over, and you're going to have $350,000 to spend on turn number two. You referenced the swing state path of Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and Wisconsin, which is exactly 200K if you add up one pip. If you go into those states, you can still get the swing state bonus on turn number three. You can also do that by going in Florida, Ohio, Wisconsin, and New Mexico. So if you don't want to go the Virginia, Wisconsin route, that's totally up to you. But when you're playing against someone like Obama, those African American states, I mean, you want to take those, because if you have those, your opponent doesn't have that. So right. I think that's you have a great mindset, and it definitely depends. And I think you, just like all players, you saw it it's a spectrum. You saw it in the very beginning in one way, and then your eyes were open, and there's right. So many strategies.
Yeah, it's like a political chess match. It's not, and that's what I think the most intriguing part of the game is for me, and what keeps me coming back year after year and having such a love for the game is there's no, I've got the strategy now, I'm the best. There's, it's not a single faceted game. There's so many different strategies and so many different people to play in their strategies, and you could come in and have a streak with a top player and beat them a couple of times, and then a week later they figure something out, and so it's always a challenge. You're never going to master this game, so that's one of the most intriguing parts for me about 270. What keeps me coming back.
For sure. And I know you said multiplayer wasn't your favorite, but it just feels so good when you win a multiplayer match. Like, right. I had one game the other day that it was a 5-person match, and like I was the kind of the odd man out. Like there was someone who was using Bill de Blasio and had super national groups. There was someone who was, like uncontested in Florida and uncontested in New York. And I just kind of zero spent, like, to sit back. And I'm like, oh crap, there's nowhere for me to go. So right. I was just trying to survive the first ballot, and somehow I just kept clawing my way back and won. But I was going to ask you, who do you consider to be your rival in 270? Do you have someone that just gives you a good game every time you play, or that you feel maybe is the – I mean, anyone can beat anyone, on a game, but someone that you would say is like pretty equal caliber to you?
There's several guys. I think, for the most part in the lounge, I've got a pretty good, standing relationship with everyone, and we play good matches. There's a lot of players that I haven't beat that I want to get a win in, namely Javier and Jason. Those are two guys that I've played. I think I've played Javier 2 times, and he's, beat me so badly. Jason Casey is another one. He's super tough with any candidate that he uses, and he's always, I think he's 5-0 on me. So George is another tough one. Now, George, the thing is with him, we both, Trump 2020 is our go-to guy. I think our overall record is maybe 4-2. He's got 4, I've got 2, and the one win was just a pure ballot. I flipped West Virginia, and that was enough to get it. So I don't even really count. That was just
Take me home to the place where I belong.
West Virginia, and that was actually our World Cup the first World Cup match. The winner of that one went on to face Laerte, and so Miracle won that one. But yeah, as far as someone, that I feel is on the same caliber that gives me good matchups and we play similar strategies and back and forth, I would say Ben, Mo Waffles. He's a good player. Yeah, Ben Shaven. Chris Roper is another guy who plays, a Republican strategy, uses Trump 2020. And, he and I've, built a good relationship. We chat and talk with each other quite often. And he always has a good match. He mirrors my strategy. So, and he knows we've played so much that he knows what I'm thinking. I know what he's thinking. So we usually end up clashing a lot and trying to take swing states, Old South, and that sort of thing. But those are the two guys that come to mind when I think of when I enter the match with them. It's going to be a chess match.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe people are watching this video for the first time. They've maybe been playing 270 not that long. So just a little bit about the lounge. It is a Facebook community. On the actual app, there is a link where it gives you, and there's often tournaments that are held inside the game. So there's two different types of tournaments. There are community-based tournaments. And actually, Daniel Smith is hosting a Republican versus Democrat tournament right now. Those community tournaments are great ways to meet people, get involved. You may not know these people like Jason Casey and Chris Roper and Ben Shaven, Mo Waffles, but you get to know people. And what's really cool is, and I'm a conservative. I know Daniel, you are as well. But politics, they don't make or break this community. Sure, there are conversations, privately among, friends and people, but, the community is about the game and about, the strategy that goes into it. And so I encourage you, if you are watching this video and you've never participated, to reach out to someone who's hosting a tournament, and just kind of look out for that. And you may not be good right away, and that's okay, because sometimes you have to get beat down a few times before you know what's going on. So
I still get beat down quite often by what I look to as the greats. I don't consider myself a great. I feel like a mid-level player at best. But yeah, I still get worn out. All the top guys still wear me out too. But you keep coming back for more, and eventually that day's coming. That was, I think, the biggest win that I ever had was against Jeff Ray. And the reason being is because he was ranked number 3. I think he actually slid to number 4. I don't know if you saw that. Supin overtook him. So congratulations to him. But yeah, Jeff Ray was someone that I looked at. I was like, number 3 on the leaderboard. This guy's got to be like a god on this game. But no, he beat me down so many times. And then I think the first time I got a win over him was in the Tournament of Champions. And we were playing I think you were in it too, and we had the round robin going on, and we all had to play each other and that sort of thing. But I got my first win on Jeff in that game, and the thrill of finally beating a big name like that was fun. So yeah, keep drilling away if you're a newer player and somebody's wearing you out, or you feel like you're just getting beat. If you keep playing and work on strategy and listen to the guys in the lounge, the girls in the lounge, watch Brendan's YouTube videos. You can learn a lot, and you can be beating the lobby noobs down.
And if you come across a guy whose name is Eugene V. Debs, take a screenshot and post it in the lounge. You have to do that.
Yeah, that's your first badge of honor in the lounge and you're probably going to get beat down by him for first couple of times you square off with him, but that's your badge of honor to get into the lounge, is getting your tail beat by Eugene V. Debs.
Yeah, so Eugene's the number 1 ranked player on the all-time leaderboard, but no one really knows who Eugene is. So that's kind of the the big question mark. Who is actually Eugene? So couple more things before we wrap this up. I do want to get your mindset. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but multiplayer. And I know we've got some multiplayer specialists who love that. And I'm not a multiplayer specialist. I know Richard Gadd is really good. David Robeson, some named George Fry. He's good at everything he does. He's like a touch
wizard,
old guy. But if you are, let's say that you are entering into a 4-person match, which again, that's my favorite multiplayer. If you do a 3-person match, it can kind of turn into one person, like could team up against someone and let someone kind of uncontested take over the map. Like think of the board game Risk. 5-person's great too. It just seems like there's a lot of forced saving because there's only so many places to go.
Yeah.
4 people with maybe 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Let's say that's the scenario where you're one of the 2 Republicans. Maybe what are some starting strategies that you might think about? Do you go national groups? Do you try to zero spin and double pip into Texas? What are you looking at in that scenario?
Well, in the scenarios that I do jump in multiplayer, I try to look and see who's in the match, and I'll Trump 2020 would be my guy. I mean, Kellyanne Conway has a good national group bonus. Just not comfortable enough with her state group bonuses to really use her and be serious. So, using Trump 2020, I still play those matches like a 1v1 sometimes, and I know you can't do that. But yeah, I kind of sit back and I'll low spend, 1 pip into a random state. Swing states is still my go-to and still what I would have my eye on. So I may, single pip into Iowa or just a random state there and kind of see where everybody else is. If I see that they're going, because a lot of the times in multiplayer groups, 1 or 2 or maybe all the other candidates are going into national groups. If they're not, they're probably going to 1 pip into California or Texas or New York. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's my opening strategy is kind of look at what's group, which my favorite being swing state, see if I can get that. Now, if the door opens up and somebody's in Florida and then the other players are grabbing Pennsylvania, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, I can see swing state's probably not going to be something that I'm going to want to pick up pretty soon. So then I'll pivot maybe into the Old South, and the easiest Old South. The path would be Louisiana, North Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland to me. But I've also found that you can pick that up with South Carolina, Georgia, Maryland, and Louisiana. So if you want to avoid those swing states, let other people fight over those, and you can still pick the Old South up. That's good, especially with Trump. I think he's got, 67,500 there. So grab the Old South, maybe work on oil, maybe work on manufacturing. Just where the door is open is where I try to go on multiplayer matches. But again, Raymond or David or these other guys that are huge multiplayer, they would be better for those questions. But that's kind of my mindset on it is still play it like a 1v1, which is definitely not the best strategy, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and that that's a kind of maybe a more of aggressive approach, and that definitely can work if you don't face any kind of pressure. I'm thinking back to a time. So there are different events that happen in the lounge. Jeremy Cooper Sperber hosts this concept of the troll, and Javier Rodriguez and Tyler DeMora they commentate. And there was one 270 lounge, one who's like legend, one 270 up and comer, and then the troll whose sole object was to try to like figure out who the legend was and sabotage so that the troll, so that the legend loses, that the up and comer can come back and win. And I was the troll. I didn't know who anyone was, and I kind of picked up on the fact that you were the legend, but it was so late, and you played as a Democratic candidate. You played through Texas and were able to win. So that's really cool. And I know, like, it may be a 3-person game, but that's a multiplayer. So that's great. And you mentioned Raymond Baroy. Shout out to the Kevin
McCarthy fanatic.
Kevin McCarthy truther out there. So
yeah.
That is for sure. 2 more questions. As far as the game is concerned, do you think that Republicans have an advantage, a disadvantage? Do you think it's a pretty level playing field as far as just the way that the game is constructed with the electoral votes, the bonuses, the different states? Because when, as a new person, they think, oh, well, California's going to Democrats.
Right.
And, it's not like that. So do you think there is a bias?
I think a person's mindset has to, be opened, or they have to realize that you can't come into this with the actual political electorals that exist in our country today. Those go out the window when you enter this game. Like I said, you can take a Trump and you can win New York, California, any of those states. You can take Obama and take the old South. So what you see on, in this country, throw that out the window when you play this game and just go into it purely as mathematical strategy game. So, yeah, I mean, you throw that out the window. I would say, I guess as a conservative, I do feel like maybe some of the Democratic candidates are more overpowered, especially the Obamas. I mean, that's pretty much, I think, even my Democratic friends in the lounge would agree that the Obamas are really, really tough.
And
especially if
Obama is great, and he at least ran for president. Why does Michelle Obama have a 20% swing state bonus and a 50? I mean, all these different things are just
right.
Like, I mean, Ronald
she's
Reagan,
actually better than, I think she's better than Barack's stats, because I played with Barack for, first couple of days, and then I said, man, Michelle's got, better stats. She's got the swing state. I don't think Obama has a swing state bonus.
It's a neutral. It's a 100.
Yeah.
And,
So
and
swing state plus African.
She's got less of a penalty in manufacturing and oil. So if you do happen to like especially like in multiplayer, like she's great because you can pivot, and in head to head, like she doesn't really have a weakness.
Right. I mean, yeah, she's just an all around. If you want to mow over some lobby new players, grab a Michelle Obama and do that. But yeah, I do think that the Republicans are slightly underfavored. I mean, there are a couple that are, heavy hitters: Trump 2020, Abraham Lincoln, Richard Nixon. Those come to mind as far as just good state groups. Now, a lot of the players a lot of the candidates have the national group bonuses, but to me, those are, kind of worthless unless it's just like a 50% or more, which I don't know off the top of my head, other than Kellyanne, any Republican candidate that has over 50%. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Democratic candidates are a little overpowered, little edge of victory goes to them, but not enough that it's, impossible to beat anybody with any player.
The way, and just to kind of give my 2 cents on it, because I've had lots of conversations with people, and I don't claim to be the smartest person in the room. I just have my 2 cents on like the candidates, like you said. There are a lot of strong Democratic candidates, and when you think of like Republicans, like who is the face of like, the party of, and I Ronald Reagan to me should be more powerful. I love George W. Bush. It's one of my favorite candidates. I don't think he should. I think he's appropriately ranked, but he's a very balanced character that does have, not a negative, an African American, but does have a Latino bonus. That's someone that I sometimes like to play with. But I will say, while I do think that mathematically, the bonuses, the Democrats have an advantage, I think that Republicans have a track with the old South being, something that they can get in 2 turns. It gives them, if they go a typical route of a Republican, it can kind of offset that bonus a little bit. And so I don't think that the game is out of whack. And while, people have to remember this game has been around a while, and while there have been updates, vice presidents haven't been around a while. Debates mode just came out, unsuccessfully. The game is essentially in 2016, and so what states are now swing states might not be swing states in future modes, or characters who have bonuses. Frederick Douglass was a really powerful candidate. And he has a manufacturing and an African American, interesting combination. The map, the political landscape didn't look the same, when he was around versus it does today. So that's the cool thing. We'll see what 270 does going forward. And Daniel, I appreciate your thoughts on that. But last question I have to ask. So we've got a really important election coming up. I don't know if you heard or not.
I think I've heard about that. Yeah, I think I've seen a little bit on Facebook and on media. Yeah. What's funny, though, it's going to have to be quick. I just got 5% battery, so we're going to have to make it quick.
Oh, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's okay. So, and I just want to get your thoughts. It can be maybe a bold prediction, maybe just where you're from and what you think is going to happen where you are. Anything that comes to mind when you think of election 2020.
Yeah, well, being in Mississippi, it's safe Trump country here, and I think most of the South is still gonna lean Republican. A lot of people though in this state and in the South, there are a lot of Biden and supporters here, and a lot of the old school Democrats are still here. So it's not as red as people may think. I think the only state in the South, the deep South, that would be
in play.
I don't think it's going to swing in 2020, but maybe in the future would be Georgia. Atlanta's growing rapidly, and I think that it has a good chance of going Democrat soon, probably the first if you take out like a North Carolina, Virginia. If you say deep South state, Georgia's probably the first that would potentially flip, I think, since maybe Jimmy Carter. You may have to check me out on that, but of course he was from Georgia. But it's you look at the media, you don't really know what to believe. I kind of just take a little from the left, a little from the right, and kind of form my own opinion. I think the biggest states is going to decide this election will be Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, Florida, and Arizona.
Those sound familiar.
Yeah, those are the big states that I think is really going to decide. I mean, Trump carried Michigan. I think Trump loses Michigan. If he can hang on to Wisconsin, which I think he will. I know others would disagree. Look at this poll or that poll. I just really don't. I don't have faith in the polling systems, and not just back from. We see what happened in 2016 with the polling, and I know there was a margin of error and that sort of thing. But if you go back to polling before this election, they seem to favor the challenger over the incumbent. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's just really going to depend on who shows up and who votes. I mean, I encourage everyone to vote, whether you vote red or whether you vote blue or whether you vote independent. Exercise your right to vote. That's a privilege we have in this country that some people across the world don't have. But I'm hoping that, on November the 3rd, that night, I hope we have the results in. I hope it's not a drag-out process and weeks, and we don't know who won and we don't know who lost, and lawsuits. And, I hope that's not an issue. I hope we get a clear winner and, if you're a Trump supporter, have a good night. If you're a Biden supporter and he wins, have a good night. But, I mean, in Mississippi, as a Republican, I'm going to say Trump's going to win, and I think it's going to be I think he's going to take all the states other than Michigan. I think he's going to take Pennsylvania. I think he's going to take Wisconsin. I kind of hope he flips Minnesota. We'll see if he does that. But I'm going to say Trump wins, and it's going to be a pretty big margin.
That's a bold prediction.
It's a bold prediction.
We will definitely see how that comes to fruition or not. Again, I like to thank everyone for tuning in to this stream. This is kind of the first trial of doing kind of like an interview style. So I would appreciate your feedback in the comments. If you have any follow-up questions for myself or for Daniel, we are active in the Facebook, in the lounge. You're welcome. I know at least for me, I'll probably have to ask Daniel, but you can always send me a message. We don't mind tutoring players, answering basic questions. It's part of it. So definitely don't be afraid to jump in there, play a real person. The AIs, that's okay to start off with to understand the mechanics of the game. But the sooner you start playing against real people and can kind of get the feel of that, the better. So Daniel, I've got a sleeping baby. I know you've got probably like 1% right now. So I'll go ahead and shut it off, but I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again, Brendan, and I appreciate you thinking of me when you wanted to talk Republican strategy. There's so many different guys that are here and active and would love to help you guys. If you're a new player, I'm happy to help you. If you want to shoot me a message or anytime you see me in the lounge, feel free to talk to me. I know Brendan feels the same way. Javier, so many different people in the lounge here to help. Check out Brendan's YouTube channel if you want to learn more on strategies or anything that is 270 related. Check his YouTube channel out. Subscribe to it.
Woohoo.
That's all I've got. And Trump 2020.
There you go. Well, thank you, Daniel. And until next time, we'll catch you guys in the next 270 video.
See ya. Good night.